Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Congressman Hank Johnson's Week of Hope, Day 3. You've already experienced Day 1 on how to write a grant proposal and Day 2 on the cheat sheet to obtaining funding. But today is very critical and very important that you get to listen to a panel on sharing grant opportunities. Today, Day 3 will make a difference in the lives of you and your organizations. On behalf of Congressman Hank Johnson, I want to welcome you to our Day 3 Week of Hope. My name is Eric Hubbard. I'm the Outreach Director, and we are going to be enjoying a wonderful and informative panel today to make sure that you and your organizations have the tools that are needed. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to some and present to others a man who really needs no introduction. He's getting ready to serve in his 18th year in Congress. He's our Congressman of the 4th District of Georgia, your friend, our Congressman Hank Johnson. Congressman?
Thank you, Eric. And this is actually my 18th year in Congress, and I appreciate everyone. I'm Congressman Hank Johnson, representing Georgia's 4th Congressional District, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to Day 3 of my annual Grants Workshop Series and to continue our Week of Hope. Today, our focus is on mental health and community planning development and the critical role that nonprofit organizations play in this field. Nonprofits are instrumental in providing needed support and services to individuals struggling with mental health and substance abuse issues. They offer vital resources, advocate for policy improvements, and work to reduce the stigma associated with mental health challenges. Their efforts are crucial in creating a supportive environment for those in need and in advancing public awareness and education. Understanding how to effectively secure funding and resources for mental health initiatives is essential for maximizing the impact of nonprofit organizations. This workshop will provide valuable insight into navigating federal grant systems and developing strong proposals to support mental health programs. Excuse me. To guide us in this very important discussion, I'm pleased to introduce Brian Payne, the Deputy Director of Legislative Affairs for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Brian plays a key role in advising on legislative matters and leading the development of proposals related to mental health and substance abuse. His expertise will be invaluable as we explore strategies to enhance our support for mental health initiatives. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Brian Payne. We look forward to your insight, Mr. Payne, and we appreciate your contribution to this critical conversation. And I'd like to also acknowledge Jacqueline with HHS and Jason with HUD. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Congressman. And it's an honor to be introduced by you. And we're very grateful at SAMHSA for all your support in Congress for our behavioral health mission and all our programming. I'm going to share my screen very quickly. And then, can everyone see that okay? Okay, great. Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Brian Payne. I'm the Deputy Director of the Office of Legislative Affairs at SAMHSA, which stands for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. We're the nation's leading behavioral health agency and a sub-agency of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here. This is a great event, and I'm really happy to talk to you all about some of the programs we do at SAMHSA and our funding opportunities. So the first thing I'll do is offer a really high-level overview of SAMHSA's activities so you can familiarize yourself with the agency. So what is SAMHSA? SAMHSA's mission is to lead public health and service delivery efforts that promote mental health, substance prevent substance misuse, provide treatment and supports to foster recovery, and ensure equitable access and better outcomes for all. So we promote programs across the spectrum of prevention, treatment, and recovery. And we envision a world where people affected by or at risk for mental health and substance use conditions receive care, thrive, and achieve well-being. And for those who aren't familiar, when I use the term behavioral health, we like to use that as an all-encompassing term so that we don't have to create sort of non-factual dichotomies between mental health and substance use. It's important that we work on all these issues together. So what does SAMHSA do? One of my favorite things about SAMHSA is that more than 91% of our funding, and I think that's a conservative estimate, goes right back out the door in the form of grants or cooperative agreements to states, territories, tribes and localities, and nonprofit organizations. So what we do is offer a lot of funding and support a lot of great programming that's done at the state and local level. And so that's it's a really great thing. And it's wonderful to be able to help support so many great programs outside of the federal government. We also offer technical assistance to grantees and practitioners, right? So SAMHSA is a thought leader and an expert. We have technical assistance centers in a wide variety of topic areas. So we have an evidence-based resource center with a lot of different resources that are free and downloadable for folks with behavioral health programs or hoping to learn more about evidence-based practices or evidence-supported practices, what the difference is. And so that's another thing that SAMHSA offers is technical assistance and support for grantees and practitioners like the folks involved here. We've also got resources. I've talked a little bit about that. SAMHSA provides a lot of behavioral health data, so we collect, analyze, and share that. On our website, you can find a treasure trove of important and topical data on behavioral health topics. We also support some of the largest behavioral health studies in the country. The National Survey on Drug Use and Health comes out every couple of years, and that's the preeminent study on behavioral health activities in the United States. And of course, we collaborate with other agencies. So we're part of many interagency coalitions and groups and task forces that work together to evaluate policy across government. And then also, of course, we work to raise awareness of available behavioral health resources through messaging campaigns and other communications. For example, proud to have celebrated the 2-year anniversary of the 988 suicide crisis and lifeline. And the biggest part of that effort has been to get people to know that 988 is out there, and that is the #1 resource to contact when someone's in a crisis. So this is just a really broad overview of SAMHSA's org structure, so you can get some sort of idea of our programming and activities and think about what might be a good resource for you or a fit for your program. We're led Assistant Secretary for Mental Health and Substance, the 988 Behavioral Health Crisis Coordinating Office. And then we have 4 primary centers: the Center for Mental Health Services, Substance Abuse Prevention, Substance Abuse Treatment, and the Center for Behavioral Health Statistics and Quality. And then within the Office of the Assistant Secretary, we've got myself and Office of Legislative Affairs, which is a division of the National Mental Health and Substance Use Policy Laboratory, the Office of Recovery, and then the Office of Intergovernmental and Public Affairs, which is relevant for this group because that is our main liaison to stakeholder groups and nonprofits. So here's SAMHSA's FY24 enacted budget, and we can't thank Congressman Johnson enough for the support. You can see the heavy emphasis on substance use disorder treatment as well as mental health services. We want to see more appropriations and programming in the prevention areas, but this is a way to see where we are compared to FY23, how those resource allocations compare to each other, and just where SAMHSA is. And so our total authority for FY24 is about $7.3 billion, which is about $3 billion more than it was 7 years ago when I started at SAMHSA. So we're very, very grateful to Congress, but part of the reason for all those appropriations is that there's a lot of serious behavioral health problems in this country, and we really need to work on solving them. So a couple of our most high-profile grant programs that I want to make folks aware of that are not competitive. So we have formula grants called the Mental Health Block Grant and the Substance Use Prevention, Treatment, and Recovery Services Block Grant. And these are really large sources of funding that go to single state agencies. So your single state behavioral health agency, they're very, very flexible. So, you know, multiple millions of dollars will go to Georgia every year. Recipient will then farm that funding, treatment, and recovery priorities. And so even though there won't be a competitive notice of funding opportunity on our website or a typical grant application, working with your single state agency and making those connections with state government is a really good way to access this large source of important funding that is at the discretion largely of state actors. And then I want to highlight a little bit of what 988 is doing because it's so important to raise awareness about that. It's our newest, fastest growing program. We just celebrated the 2-year anniversary of it. Recently in July, we hit the 10 million call, text, and chat contact level. That means 10 million individuals have contacted 988 looking for help in a crisis, and we're really proud to be able to answer that at a high rate. We recently achieved our goal of a 90% accuracy rate in picking up those contacts, and we've implemented Spanish language chat and text functionality, as well as specialized services and culturally sensitive services for LGBT plus individuals. So the second half of the presentation is going to be about helping folks think about applying for SAMHSA funding and SAMHSA grants. So the most important thing that I'm going to offer you today is resources, is links to really great products that folks have developed over a long period of time. So we have some head of SAMHSA grant application packet. Also share this PowerPoint with Candace, so you'll have it available to you. And this is a really wonderful, all-encompassing resource for folks who are thinking about applying to SAMHSA funding and hoping to figure out how to optimize your level of success in applying for SAMHSA funding. So the key activities to think about, number one, and this is usually the most neglected portion, is preparing to apply. So most people think about writing an amazing narrative statement and answering the questions to the best of our ability, but probably in terms of time spent on an application, unfortunately, preparing to apply and getting logged into the websites and getting your profile up to date and all your information correct and setting up the structure of your organization to apply is probably going to be the more time-consuming aspect. So we really can't stress enough, if you want to apply, you cannot start too early, and you can, at any time, you can sign up to create an account at any of the 3 government websites you'll need to be a member of in order to apply to these funding opportunities. Then, of course, developing your application is very important. We offer webinars. We have staff available to answer questions about the quality of your application. And there's a peer review process, certainly, that you can participate in that can be really helpful in helping you optimize your application. And then finally, submitting your application, awaiting results and feedback. Everybody knows how to do that. So these are the 3 websites I mentioned, and that's the first place to start when thinking about applying. There's the System for Award Management, or SAM.gov, which is the financial website where you would, if you get an award, where you would draw down and have enter all your financial information. You need an account on SAM.gov and to be all set up before you can successfully hit submit on your grant application. There's Grants.gov, which everyone's pretty familiar with, but you need to log in and have an account well in advance of applying. And then there's ERA Commons, which I can send a link to as well, which is a way for HHS to be familiar with the aspects of your organization and all the profile information, and can set you up for success in applying at grants.gov. So it's frustrating that the process can be this complicated. Obviously, it's a lot of money and a lot of different applicants. So know in advance that it's really important to register and set up your account in all 3 systems and have all that ready to go before you're ready to hit submit. And then finally, applying. So obviously, it's very important to review and update your program and organizational information. So knowing what your nonprofit's address are, having a recent 990, making sure your finances are in order and in the format needed to apply, having a Duns and Bradstreet number for certain grants is important, and all that stuff can be done well in advance of the application window. Then obviously compiling the data that's going to support the narrative elements of your application. So learning the mental health and substance use needs in your area, so the socioeconomic profiles in your area, figuring out how you're going to tell that story with both data and narrative about why you're a great candidate for this grant and the people that you represent need it. And then obviously there's a lot of grants for which the evaluation criteria benefit you if you build coalitions or partnerships or networks, including with your member of Congress. And so building those coalitions and partnerships in advance of applying is going to set you up for success when it's time to actually write what's going to go in the application document and then hit submit. So we talked about developing an application. Very important to download the application documents. When I talk about NOFO, that stands for Notice of Funding Opportunity. And this is sort of the constitution of how to apply for the grant. A NOFO is going to have all the requirements for who's eligible, who's not, what the evaluation criteria are, when the deadlines are, what's the federal authority for the grant, how many grants there will be and for what amount. Everything you would want to know about a competitive funding opportunity is going to be in that NOFO. And we've got a NOFO application guide, or how to read the NOFO and how to enhance your grant application based on the information in there. There's a QR code there, as well as a link on our website that I can share in my PowerPoint. So who's eligible? Generally only domestic and public and private nonprofit entities can apply to SAMHSA grants. So usually that's nonprofits and NGOs. Often it can be state and local governments, and then certainly tribal organizations or federally recognized tribes for specific grants. And again, each SAMHSA program and each NOFO has its own eligibility. Find the executive summary in that part of the document, look for the eligible applicant section to figure out if you're a candidate. And then in terms of developing an application, obviously the first thing you do whenever you submit an assignment in school or apply for a grant or anything is read that rubric and figure out what the reviewers are going to score and what they care about. So review those evaluation criteria very closely and develop your project narrative accordingly. Know what's going to be scored, know what's going to be important. And then that second bullet, any required activities are essential and things that your program has to bring to the table or have a plan to do if you're going to be eligible for the grant, right? So those are not optional. Any required activities listed in that NOFO need to be a part of the application. And then sort of the rule parameters, page limits, formatting requirements, that is all very serious because a lot of this is automated. And if you submit, and some of that is there can be a delay in accepting your application, and that can be a real problem for submitting a valid application. So really pay attention to the page limits, formatting requirements, and the things that seem esoteric but are that important rules to follow. And then we can't stress enough that it's really helpful to submit your application early. If you click submit and you have run into a problem, it's better not to have only an hour to fix it. If you want to communicate with our grant staff or check other things online, we offer a 60-day application window for these competitive programs. So if you can submit early and there's no disadvantage, you can always change your application after the fact. So check your email for notifications. Make sure you have something that says, yes, I registered at sam.gov. Yes, I registered for my Duns and Bradstreet number. I have my grants.gov account. It's all up to date. Make sure you see those in your nonprofit's email inbox. Participate in peer review with coalition members and your peers. And then we offer the opportunity for feedback upon the first round of submission. And so that's a really good thing to take advantage of. And then, of course, await that review and feedback patiently and be communicative as much as you need to. That's why our grant staff are there. And that's the way to increase your chances of success. So again, here's a list of really important links. I point to Candace, so you'll have accounts on those 3 essential websites, or 1, 2, 3. There's a help desk for the ERA website, the grant guide that I already mentioned, the NOFO guide. 7 and 8, I've mentioned those. The grants dashboard is a great place to page through and see what activities SAMHSA has, what funding Georgia gets by state and by congressional district is available on that dashboard, what things have come out has been listed. That's all there. And then 9, the grant forecast is when we anticipate releasing grants the next fiscal year. So this is a great one if you're forward looking and you want to prepare to apply for a specific grant. The Evidence-Based Practices Resource Center I mentioned is a great supportive resource. SAMHSA data lists all our collection of behavioral health data. And then finally, the FY25 Congressional Justification of Budget Estimates is a really, really comprehensive document where SAMHSA and the federal government justify to Congress why we estimated what we did, why we think we need the funding, what our outcomes were for previous programs, and what some of the highlights were. And that's a really great place to look for, okay, what happened with this program in the past, and what does this program do? And it's a large document to control F through if you have a lot of questions. Then finally, we have these 2 email addresses. If you have problems with the grant application process, you can always email address. If you want to go through your member of Congress, you can always email me through that process. But it'll be more direct to go through that grants application staff. And then once you have a grant and you're worried about your financial management, or you have questions about what to do in drawing down funds, that's the second address on that list. And then I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. So thank you again for the opportunity. It's great to have everybody involved. It's a great time for this. It's right before a new fiscal year. Opportunities are about to come down the road. So thank you very much. Do I kick it to Jacqueline, or should I send it back to Eric?
Yes, kick it on over to Jacqueline. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Brian. There's so much information in that presentation you just gave that is going to be repeated in my presentation as well. But I just want to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Jacqueline Cabada Branscombe. I am the NOFO branch chief for the Administration for Children and Families, which is housed in HHS. So we're a sister agency with SAMHSA. You might have heard of CDC, FDA, NIH. We're all sister agencies within the HHS umbrella. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Hopefully y'all could see that. Sounds good. Okay. So first of all, I want to thank you, Congressman Hank Johnson, for having this platform, especially at this time. Right now, a lot of our program offices are going through grant review for applications that were submitted for fiscal year 24 opportunities. And so we are gearing up for the next fiscal year of all the grants that will be coming out. So this is a great time to get in touch with all of y'all to get a better understanding of how grants work with the Administration for Children and Families. So just to get started, let's see here. Okay, so ACF, the Administration for Children and Families is the second largest agency, I would say, in HHS in terms of number of grants that are issued and in terms of dollar amounts that are issued. We are the HS part of HHS, we're the human services part, that we handle a lot of programs. The purpose of ACF is to promote the economic and social well-being of families, children, youth, individuals, and communities with funding, strategic partnerships, guidance, training, and technical assistance. As you can see, we have over 60 programs in ACF, and anything you think of: childcare, child support services, child welfare, Office of Trafficking in Persons, Office of Refugee Resettlement, Head Start. All of those various programs are housed within the Administration for Children and Families. We also have a budget of over $70 billion. And like Brian was saying, we have a mixture of grants. They're both non-discretionary and discretionary, which means we have some grants that are competed and some grants that are not. We have a good chunk of programs that go straight to the state. And then, like he was saying, partnering with those state agencies to see what work can be done there is a great idea. It also gets you an opportunity to work with some of the funds there. But we do have a good amount of opportunities that are competed. These programs are, we have about 17,000 in grant and cooperative agreement awards. Those are a mixture, I believe, of non-discretionary and discretionary. and we have over 3,000 grant recipients. So in terms of who can apply for the competitive grants, those typically, they're stated in each individual NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity. They could be nonprofits, some may have for-profits, some may have different state agencies. So just be sure to take a look at each individual Notice of Funding Opportunity that you may be interested in, and they should have the who's eligible there. For this, and I am going to be sending these slides to Candace so that you guys can have it, because I also put links at the bottom of each slide, so you're able to go to various resources that I pulled these from. The grants life cycle overview. There are 3 general phases for the grants life cycle in ACF. There's a pre-award phase, the award phase, and the post-award phase. I will be focusing mostly on the pre-award phase because that's where my office is in terms of the Notice of Funding Opportunity. This phase is, there's a lot, if you want to learn more about the award phase or the post-award phase, you can go to the links that I have below, grants.gov. They have a grants one-on-one page to have a lot of information there. And additionally, ACF has just launched a more updated, more thorough grants page that's available. And that you can find more information, particularly about ACF grants, learn more about reporting requirements. You can learn more about all of our terms and conditions, and even about construction, all these different things you can find out at our website there. So I'm going to go to the pre-award phase. The pre-award phase, it has about 5 different, these are 5 general steps, and it kind of starts with agency planning. So agencies plan annually about what programs they want to fund, and usually it has to align with what Congress has appropriated to them. They usually look at like how Brian showed you the congressional budget justification that usually gets produced first, and it has a lot of information regarding which programs we would be potentially funding. So after agency does that planning in terms of what kind of programs they want to do, they go to forecasting the opportunity. Forecasts, the agency usually puts out a forecast of the anticipated funding opportunities for the fiscal year. Around this time, so this is a perfect time for you guys to be doing this workshop. This usually occurs the summer before the fiscal year begins, and you can find these forecasts on grants.gov. We've posted, ACF has already posted about 53 opportunities. So you could go to grants.gov, look up the Administration for Children and Families, and you'll see about 53 forecasts. So if you could check that out to see even if you're eligible in terms of your entity, and you can get a little bit of idea of what the programs may be. This is just to forecast the potential for a Notice of Funding Opportunity. So that is a great place to start to get some ideas. And there's also contact information there that you may be able to contact someone if you have additional information. So it kind of gets that bug going there. The forecast, they talk about the program description, what type of organizations are eligible, the total amount of funding, the max amount that an applicant may request, number of awards that may be expected, and when the full announcement may be posted. So it's a great place to go. You can also sign up by going to grants.gov. If you see an announcement that looks really good to you, go ahead and sign up for subscription. So then you'll be notified whenever it's actually live or if there's any updates to that notice. Next on the slide is, next in the phase is the Notice of Funding Opportunity itself. So the Notice of Funding Opportunity is a document that ACF publishes. And again, this is pretty much copying what Brian has just stated. This NOFO includes the program goals and requirements, the types of organizations eligible for applying or for funding, what must be addressed in the application, so super important, the criteria of how the application is going to be reviewed, and the award details. Based on the NOFO, you should be able to determine if you should even consider applying. So take a look at that NOFO and get a better idea, like what is this program really asking for us to do? What are the requirements that we may be able, that we have to consider administratively, financially, those types of things. Look at that and decide whether or not you want to apply. Application submission. The reviewing the NOFO for instructions for the application is super important. Brian pointed out there's 3 systems for SAMHSA. For ACF NOFOs, the 2 most important are grants.gov and sam.gov. We don't use the ERA Commons, so you don't have to do that but I would suggest signing up anyway because you might want to apply to SAMHSA funds. So be sure to sign up for those now, even if you don't see anything that you're interested in applying, just having that on the books, because that can take weeks if you don't sign up on time. So please be sure to look at that. And then the last part is application review. Once the applications are received, there's a comprehensive review that occurs. It's conducted by a panel of independent subject matter experts who are selected from a group of qualified individuals to become reviewers or panel chairpersons. Applications are reviewed by at least 3 reviewers who separately score the application according to the evaluation that's found in the notice of funding opportunity. So that's why it's super important to look at that. Evaluation criteria can vary it does vary NOFO to NOFO. So just because you've read one in 2015 doesn't mean that's the same criteria now in 2024. So please be sure to look closely at those NOFOs individually. Applicants, whether they're successful or unsuccessful with your application, whether you get the grant or not, you should be receiving a copy of the applicant panel summary so that you can get a better idea of what your strengths and weaknesses are in that application so you can better apply the following years. So there's a lot of, there's some help in that. And so it's very helpful to get that constructive feedback for future applications that you're looking forward to possibly doing. So that's it for the pre-award phase. Let me see here. I've listed a lot of resources here. A lot of them are similar to what Brian also posted. So grants.gov 101 is a really helpful place to go to. sam.gov registration, the quick start guide. I want to highlight the grants website because that has been something we've been hoping to work on more to help better prepare the community in getting ready to apply for grants. And if you become a recipient, to have all your have questions answered there. So please check that out. There's also one thing I didn't get to mention is the ACF is simplifying our notices of funding opportunity. So if you're an entity that has applied to ACF before, probably in the last 20 years, you've seen what these notices of funding opportunities look like. They are thick and they are heavy. We are on this quest in HHS to simplify NOFOs across the board. And so you may have seen in this past fiscal year about 25 NOFOs that have been thoroughly simplified because we're trying to make it better for applicants to get a better idea if they're qualified, if they want to apply, and also just making it easier to have a chance to get funding. So please check out those funds. This blog kind of links you to grants.gov to see those opportunities out there that were simplified. And if you have questions about the simplification effort, there's an email address for HHS. And because y'all are in Georgia, we have our Region 4 regional administrator there in Atlanta. If you have any questions regarding any programs, you could reach out to this office. You can also find this information on the ACF grants ACF website. So I hope I answered all those questions. I think I got everything there. So I'll stop right there and I'll answer any questions at the end of the presentation. So thank you very much. And I believe I should be kicking it off to Jason.
Yes, Jacqueline, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jason Becker with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Office of Community Planning and Development. I am not a sister agency with everyone else in HHS. We're completely separate, but I'm going to go through what we do, how we do it, the grant opportunities there are, and how you as a citizen, a nonprofit organization, as an advocate in the community can access some of these funds and assist those that need it. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And there we go. Okay, again, we're the Office of Community Planning and Development. And I'm gonna give you some highlights and then we'll go over some very specific things that will be crucial to how you can access funding. All right, so I want to just let you guys know, I'm one of the senior community planning and development representatives here in the Georgia field office. We're in the Atlanta regional office, but our office just handles Georgia itself. Everything coming from the state itself with DCA, with individual cities and counties that receive entitlement funding. And then we also manage and work with nonprofit organizations that either receive direct funding from HUD or receive it through one of our entitlement communities. That is me. Roxanne McKeever, she's our Atlanta CPD director. She's out for a little bit on leave right now, but we're the ones that are directly here on the ground in Atlanta that work with our communities. And we have an office. Currently, we're about 10 individuals. Usually when we're fully staffed, we're about 12. And so we're there to just work with individuals here in the state of Georgia. So what we do, our office literally helps develop viable communities. We do community building, as it says in the first column, economic development, job creation, employment, and safe and affordable housing. We work with our entitlement partners to provide those type of services or opportunities to individuals. They can look like a variety of different things. They can be job training opportunities, like with a union or with an internship. It could be with a local community college where they're training individuals for all kinds of technical jobs or things like that. And then also we use it to work with our community partners to build housing, single family, multifamily, multi-use, all kinds of things. We have a community development initiative where we do planning. We help communities assist in their planning process. It could be we do a comprehensive plan every 5 years, 3 to 5 years, depending on how the community wants to do it. For instance, I believe DeKalb County just turned in their 5-year comp plan this year. And then we also work with them and they do an annual action plan where the comp plan is a 5-year vision on where they want to use the funding they have coming in, how they see it working out. The action plan is how are they going to interpret that vision and put it into action that year. And so we work them up. We like to provide assistance where the communities work, as I said, from the bottom up. In those communities, those neighborhoods that they want to focus funding on, they want to help redevelop and provide all kinds of assistance. What we work with them on is going at the grassroots level, finding out what the community needs are, find out explain what resources there are available, and then try to make that vision reality. And so it really starts at the community level. I started before I even came to HUD. I worked for a city and for a county, and we did this on an annual basis. We had 5 targeted communities when I worked in Florida, and we just went in there and met with folks at least quarterly on a community meeting, those 7 o'clock meetings in your neighborhood, and just worked on, what do you need? What kind, do you have a neighbor that has a need? Can you put us in touch with them? And then work and build the communities that way. We do solve complex problems. There's a lot of things. Building sustainable, viable communities is hard work. And there's sometimes some very complex issues that might have to do with land use or environmental protection, things like that. And we help communities solve those. We also are proud, I would say, to work in the community, work how we, like folks have said, about streamlining government, streamlining applications, making sure that government is accessible to you and funding is accessible to folks in the community, or it's available for you to advocate to your community leaders for the funding you need in your own community. And then communication and information. The big thing, what we do is citizen participation. Every plan I was mentioning, a comprehensive plan, annual action plan, when a community has to report at the end of the year, we call those capers, comprehensive action plan evaluation reports. Those all have to have citizen participation, meaning that that plan or report has to be completed, or in the midst of doing, there's at least a 30-day citizen participation period where the notice goes out and has to be available for your input. And we really advocate the community's need to ensure that the community is giving their input on what's happening, what's not happening, what could be better, so they can take that information and hopefully mold what they do the next year. Just the grant stuff that I'll get into. So we have five main grants that you can see on the screen. We actually have a few others. I have communities that have about 9 different funding opportunities that are attached to them. Some of these things pop up and are just kind of new when they pop up, or there's an emergency and we have a special grant. One of those is Neighborhood Stabilization Program. That is a grant from like 2009, 2010 that we still have open. And then a lot of that was had to do with getting housing stock back on the market, ready to go, and at an available price for people that can afford it, and make it affordable. So we have Community Development Block Grant. That's the one everybody kind of knows about if they know about any of those things. That's the one that we're very grateful that folks like Congressman Johnson advocate for every single year, because it's the one that does the most in our communities. We have the Home Initiative Partnership. We have Emergency Solutions Grant. We have the Housing Opportunity with Persons with AIDS, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And then we have Continuum of Care. All these programs have opportunities for individuals to access, or nonprofits to access individually and or through another agency. So we're going to go ahead and go through CDBG. CDBG is ubiquitous. We can do all kinds of things for it. It allows lots of flexibilities for community. These are usually entitlement funds. So depending on size, block tracks with low-income individuals that live there. So, for instance, DeKalb County gets some funding, Brookhaven gets funding, Gwinnett County gets funding. Rockdale, Newton counties do not, but they would fall under the state of Georgia under DCA. We want to be able to touch every community, but not every community is large enough from a government standpoint to receive funding. We do all kinds of things with, and I don't say we, our partners do. We don't actually do the construction or the building. Our partners do. We can do infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, sidewalks, street lamps, all those things. If we've got a low-income community that needs those things, the community who's receiving the funding can do those. That provides access, transportation to individuals that need it. We do economic development projects. Those could be, like I said earlier, they could be working with a community college. It could be working with a job placement program, just to help with job skills. Sometimes it could be loans, small business loans, to provide for a small business that wants to provide a service in that community that creates jobs, creates wealth, and circulates funding in the community. We do public facilities installation. Those could be firehouses, police stations, schools, community centers, anything that the community would need that's for public use, parks, all those things can be used for that funding. Community centers on the list. And then we also do housing rehab. So some communities might set aside X amount of their funding for roof repair. So if you meet the income requirements for it and you need a roof, you can go and access CDBG funding, and they can help you put a new roof on your house, or it could be for water heater or an air conditioner or all kinds of things that can repair your home. And usually, if you're trying to access these funds, well, if you're an individual, usually you can just go to, let's say, DeKalb County. They have their own process for you to fill out an application. And there might be a queue where you fill out your application, and then you're like 8th on the list. And once they work their way down, they can get to you and send out some inspectors, do the thing, and then work with you to make the repair on your home. If you're a nonprofit, we have a 15% set aside. So let's say, I'm making up numbers I don't have in front of me, DeKalb County gets $1 million this year. They can set aside $150,000 to provide for what we call public service. Those that individual, DeKalb County will grant out that money to nonprofit organizations to provide for after school care. They could provide for Meals on Wheels, provide food for seniors, all kinds of community service type activities can be paid for out of that 15%. I'm going to say 50% set aside. Communities don't have to go to that 50%, but most do. And that's how CDBG can help that way. With home investment partnership, don't worry about the purpose. This is a general thing. I don't want to bog you down with things like that. But home is the next tier up. This is community home. This is where we get with this is where we really get within. We can do a lot of it's, we do down payments. I'd say our partners do down payment assistance a lot. So if you're an individual looking at meet the income requirements and want some assistance or need some assistance with down payment, a lot of the communities will use their home funds for down payment assistance programs. Usually the way that works is there's an affordability period. So let's say they give you $15,000 for down payment on a new home. There's a 5-year affordability period. So usually the way it works is every year you're in that home, 20% of that grant will just kind of disappear. If you sold the house with 4 years, you're going to owe 20% of that 15% down payment. If after that you're free and clear, but we're trying to, the purpose of the down payment assistance is to get home ownership with low-income individuals or families up. We can do housing activities, meaning they'll do some repair. We'll also do work. A lot of times they'll set money aside and say, hey, we're going to buy down units. Let's say a multifamily project's going in Avondale. I'm just making it up, Avondale. We're going to put 50 units in Avondale. And DeKalb works it out to where we're going to buy down 10 of those units for the next 20 years. Low rate in here so we can get folks into those apartments. Also economic development activities, just like that, but homes, the next tier. It is complicated. I will say this, as someone who's been working on this for 20 years, home is very complicated, but we do our best. And I'm just saying, just regulation wise, a lot of the communities will do down payment assistance only because it's the easiest way to do it. It's the easiest way to get money into individuals' hands and make home ownership a reality for those that are wishing to own their own home. Emergency Solutions Grant. This actually will also ties in with the continuum of care, which I'll talk about at the end. The same office oversees both of these in DC, but this is where we can provide local communities funding to help individuals that are chronically homeless. They can do straight outreach. They'll help fund emergency shelters. So a lot of times you'll see stuff in the wintertime when they'll shelters open up because of the temperature. A lot of times the funding will come from this. What we do is rapid rehousing. Rapid rehousing is when, let's say you've got a family of 4 that for one reason or the other are about to lose their apartment. Either somebody lost a job, they can't afford the rent, rent's gone up too much and they can't afford it there, or something happens. We have a rapid rehousing program where we know that if we take a family and put them on the street, it's bad for the family dynamic. It hurts children with their education, and we try to get them in a stabilized apartment. And again, I say we, our community partners, and so there's funding to be able to help a family move into a place and stabilize the rent for 6 to 12 months, and then provide them with other services so they can hopefully not be in that same predicament again, and realize if we can stabilize a family, especially with children and their schooling, they're going to be much more prepared as they grow. And then homeless management information systems. Just a heads up, this isn't really relevant here, but it's basically the way we manage all these things. All of our continuum of cares, which include DeKalb County has their own, Atlanta has their own, Fulton, Gwinnett, Cobb, Savannah, etc. Basically, it's a way for a repository of information. We want to ensure part of our job is also to make sure we're not duplicating services. We're trying to ensure that the same family is not getting funding from 2 or 3 different agencies at the same time. One, because it's unfair. 2, we'll be over assisting a family, but we want to make sure the funding gets spread out to as many individuals as possible, and we can do the most good with what we have. So that's what we use that for. Okay, the next one, housing opportunities with persons with AIDS. This is a very specialized grant, as you can tell. It's for individuals with HIV AIDS diagnosis that are low income, with other things like can provide transportation for appointments, can provide medication, all kinds of things. But it's also a grant that there's only 4 grantees in the state. The state has one, City of Augusta has one, the City of Atlanta has one, but they operate it in a metropolitan area, so the money it can go out into the counties outside. And then the City of Savannah has one, but theirs is competitive. These are everything I've been talking about are entitlements. It's based on a formula. Congress passes the budget, we split the money up, they get their money, but there's also a competitive portion that Savannah applies to every year because they do have some issues with this, and the funding they get helps provide assistance. But we're really helping those individuals that might have difficulty maybe getting around, moving around, and ensuring that they have a comfortable place to live. All right, this is the one. These are our homeless grants, and this is where we can really touch people. Meaning, as you as a nonprofit has the best opportunity to get funding, and or an advocate, you can help. So we have one big one and then 2 others. The big one is the continuum of care. You see this on here. We're going to share this with the team with the Congressman's office. But every year we have a COC program. We're always a year behind. So right now we're doing we're writing grant agreements for FY23. The submission deadline for 24 is October 30th, 2024. So the way it works is we have 10 COCs, continuum of cares, in the state of Georgia. They go from the state at DCA, City of Atlanta, DeKalb County, Athens, Savannah, Augusta, etc. They receive their own allotment. They will receive grant applications from folks in the community, and then based on need and capacity, they decide which organizations will receive funding. Some organizations receive funding directly from us. For instance, I've got one, 3 Keys. 3 Keys is a nonprofit organization in Metro Atlanta that provides housing solutions. I have a grant with them that it's directly to them. I deal with them. They also receive a grant from DCA, from us, from the COC, because it's in an area where DCA operates. Department of Community Affairs will work in Rockdale and Newton County because they're not covered by a COC. So there are opportunities for nonprofit organizations to work in those communities. But for unincorporated DeKalb County, that doesn't include the City of Atlanta, the DeKalb COC has their own funding and works with community partners there to provide these services. And these services we do leasing. Leasing means you as an organization, you'll work with an apartment complex, lease 10 units, and then you can move people in and out throughout the year as they need assistance, and then move them on. And then, like I said, the rapid rehousing, we call that TBRA. And a few other things. YDHP is our. It does a few things. Individuals that are under 18 or under 21 provides assistance. It also helps with folks that's aged out of the foster care system. If they're still in high school, we've got grants that help with that, because we know after they turn 18, they really can't be supported, and we want to make sure that they're successful, they graduate, and they can move on either to college or a job or some career. And then we do have special NOFOs that do pop up, just like that was said before. Sometimes we don't even know when it happens. They'll just pop up. But we have unsheltered and rural homelessness stuff. And that goes into those communities, like I said, that aren't direct entitlement communities. Okay. So this is our rural development partners. I kind of mentioned it. As you can see just on the map itself, Georgia is covered, but we receive a lot of funding. And you don't care about the numbers, but there are opportunities outside of like DeKalb County. Even though it is, we do have a rural component where we're providing assistance to rural communities. And then, as you can see here, we have assigned signature communities, and Georgia is one of them. Especially Southwest Georgia. And I know that's outside of the congressman's district, but we do provide a lot of support for Southwest Georgia in general, just to assist individuals. But what I want to say is there are opportunities for you. You can, if you're a community advocate, you can bridge gaps by making connections with folks in DeKalb County or in the city of Atlanta, if you're there, or with DCA. If you're a nonprofit organization, start bridging that gap with the continuum of care, either DCA or DeKalb County. That way you can understand what their process is, how they fund community partners, and see if the process and the project or what you can provide the community aligns with what they want, and start working it that way. All those things that everyone else talked about, SAM.gov and grants.gov, and we don't really use DUNS numbers anymore, but having all those things as a key partner with the organization that has money. Everyone just assumes that we do the work and we give the money out. We don't. We're community driven. We provide money to the community, or funding grants to the community, and it's community driven. We want to make sure you as a community partner are advocating for what you need and what you want for your community, and it works from the ground up. So that is it there. We're gonna do some Q&As at the end, so I'm going to wait for that. Eric, are you up?
No, I am. And if
Sorry.
You're okay. You're okay. If you're done with your presentation, I'll go ahead and open it up for a few questions. So it looks like Shannon asked, "Thank you for the presentation, Brian and Jacqueline. Many of my organization's programs provide support in Georgia, Louisiana, Florida, and South Carolina. Would I have to apply for the same program in each state, or can I apply once for all states? An example would be for our Christmas support program. We operate in all of the mentioned states for that program."
I can go from me. So part of that would be like the discretion grant, like I said, from CDBG, that 15% community service portion. That could be an eligible activity. You would actually have to apply for every community you're working in. If you were going to apply, let's say the DCA, the state of Georgia, they would be like, okay, these are the communities you can work in, and it wouldn't be in the city of Atlanta or in DeKalb County, but it would be other places. The reason that is our funding is tied to a geographical location area, and they have that jurisdiction who sees the funding has to ensure they're using the funding within their designated space per se. But you would, yes.
Yeah, I guess I'd say the same thing. I'm not really familiar with that particular program, but it can depend. I know that we have we have a number of grants, notice the funding opportunities that are nationwide based or nationally based. And so it depends on if that type of grant funding was meant for something that could be funded for multiple states, multiple regions, areas like that. So you might just have to check that specific notice of funding opportunity to see, because sometimes there are grant awards that if you propose to serve multiple areas, that's okay. In terms of looking at states agencies, if there are non-discretionary grants that are set funding that's given to the states and the state has to handle it, you probably have to apply to each individual state agency to get the funding there.
Okay, thank you. Next question, it says, this is from Barbara. Jason, in DeKalb County, what is the best way to access community development block grants funds to assist with the needs of neighborhoods in DeKalb County parks of 35 acres?
Hey, Barbara. So yes, I'm going to pull it up. It's it's really directly. They have an office of community development. I should have, honestly, I should have pulled this up. I'm pulling it up right now so I can give you the exact thing. But they do utilize county the CDBG funding directly for parks. And I will say, I think it was about a year ago. Community development. They utilized the funding for a brand new park. Let's see, over near the DeKalb Farmers Market, a huge park where I think there's a pool, there's all kinds. It's a senior center, so they will utilize stuff on a long-term basis for parks. But yes, if you just, and I hate saying just Google, but if you just Google DeKalb County Community Development, it'll put you right. The first top one is the first page, and it has links literally to community development. Homelessness, DeKalb COC. They have a plumbing repair program. The East Central DeKalb Community Senior Center. That's it. East Community DeKalb Senior Center. I thought it had a name, like it was named after someone, but that was the last one they put it together. And actually, do you mind if I share my screen real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. Here we go. That way you can see it, Barbara. This is what it looks like. You go there, and they literally will tell you once you make contacts with the folks at DeKalb County. They're really good. They are really, really good. We actually not gonna lie, we stole one of their employees from them. So we hired her about a year ago because we really like what they do. But this right here, this is about a year ago. They used CDBG funding and some other funding to create this senior center right here. They have classes, pools, the pool, places to meet, all kinds of stuff. So, and again, this whole on the left, if you look, they've got the plumbing repair program. They talk about community development. And if you go towards the bottom, this is a little old. That's their own COC NOFA application. But if you start a conversation with them and with the contacts, it'll work out, and you'll be able to find exactly who you need to speak to, and they can help you out with that.
Thank you. Next question is from Danielle. I have a question for Mr. Becker. How would my nonprofit, My Girls Incorporated, get funding to develop transitional supportive housing for young adult females living with a mental health diagnosis, substance abuse disorder, or dual diagnosis?
All right. So that's perfect. Perfect question. I appreciate that. So we do that. That is a need that's needed in the community. That would be through the continuum of care. I didn't say we, HUD, the Georgia field office, manages, I think we have 189 COC grants in the state of Georgia. I'm assigned like 45 of them myself. And they do everything from, like you said, providing assistance with folks that have mental health issues, all the way to senior level stuff. But you would start looking at the NOFAs, making contact with the DeKalb community COC or with the DCA, Department of Community Affairs, State of Georgia's Continuum of Care. Same thing. If you Google DCA COC, there's a whole thing there. It pops up with a map and everything they do in the contacts. Start there. If it's something you're already doing, you can work on your application, how you want to fund your budgets, that sort of thing. If it's something you want to do, you can look at start having that conversation with like DeKalb County, seeing how you want to develop your program. Part of it's going to be access. Part of it's going to be ensuring that you have a place to put folks. I will say this, I didn't mention in the thing, and this is mainly for a buy-in. Our COC grants have a 25% match. We call it a match. So let's say we provide you $100,000 for the year. You as a COC organization are come to the table with a 25% match. That could be cash or it could be in kind. But it's just the buy-in to ensure that we're doing this together as a community, and having and it could be like you have a mental health counselor that provides pro bono service once a week for 4 hours a week, and they would be charging you, I don't know, $50 an hour. That could be your match. But we just we kind of want to see that together, so we're working together. But start having that conversation with DeKalb County or the DCA continuum of care, and see how to move forward, what they want. Everybody does it differently. The continuum of cares are a group of individuals that are like on a board from nonprofits, from the state, from local cities that are just community members, and they kind of work as a board to provide technical assistance, and then we provide them or the nonprofits technical assistance. But I would just start there.
Thank you. All I would like to know, is the DeKalb Tenant Landlord Assistance Coalition connected to your program, Brian?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't believe I don't think they have any funding from us. I'm not aware of it. I would have to do a little more research. But like I said, we have direct grants from the COC from us, or DeKalb County might be a pass-through. But also, I'm not assigned, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not assigned to DeKalb County as a grantee. I have some other ones. They could be. I don't know if they received that 15% set aside for public service. I have no idea. But as far as I'm aware, they don't have a direct grant from us.
Let me filter through a few more. Let's see. Can a Rockdale County citizen apply for the home improvement grant, such as roofing?
Sure, that would be through DCA. DCA has their own programs. They will partner with. They'll have their own program set up. Sometimes they'll do direct grants to a city or a county that needs it. Like they have, basically what DCA does is they have their own application process open up for everybody in the state of Georgia that's not a direct recipient. So some applicants might be like Statesboro. City of Statesboro is like, hey, we've got a sewer project we want to work on. Can we get some funding from CDBG? They put the application in, and let's say DCA provides them with X amount of dollars to help go towards that program. But then DCA also has other programs. This isn't to like not say don't use our programs, but also when you're out there, I say this because I worked for Habitat for Humanity International for 10 years before I came to HUD. Also remember there's other nonprofits organizations out there that might not receive direct federal funding like Habitat that does, and a lot of people think Habitat does new construction houses only. They do, but they also do home repair as well to help with that. But for being in Rockdale County or Newton County, you're going to look directly to the state of Georgia's Department of Community Affairs.
Renee would like to know, what are the typical requirements for an individual to apply for CDBG and or home funds? Does the county place stipulations on what agencies can apply? The TA workshops I usually attend never mention individuals who can apply.
So there is a difference between applying for a program as an individual and one where you're trying to run a program. If you're going to, as an individual homeowner, you can apply directly to DeKalb County or DCA to receive funding for a home repair or down payment assistance or that type of thing. If you're looking for assistance to run a program itself, that's where you have to put everything together, be a nonprofit organization, have your 1099 stuff in, your tax stuff in, go on to SAMS.gov and grants.gov, ensure all of those things are there, and then apply when the DeKalb County or the state of Georgia open up their applications for program dollars. And that's where, as a nonprofit organization, or even as a single source nonprofit organization, you can apply to the county or the state to receive some of those fundings to run your program.
Okay. Let's see. Patricia asks, Are entitlement communities eligible for ESG, or does that come out of allocated CDBG? Thank you.
No, no, it's actually a separate set of funding. So it's a separate source. ESG is a separate source of funding. It just happens to, the way the funding breakdown works is you have to be a certain size before you reach the threshold to be ESG. So for instance, the very first threshold, if you're a city or of a certain size or what we call an urban county or the state, you receive CDBG. Once you get to a certain size above that, you can receive home funding, and then another size of that, you get ESG, and then HOPWA's a little different. So I believe, as I mentioned, let's see, I believe DeKalb County receives ESG funding. I'm looking up right now. But yes, they're separate. ESG is not cut out from CDBG. They're separate sources of funding from Congress.
Okay. Cheryl asks, can you please reiterate why Rockdale County doesn't have a community development block grant?
Sure. It kind of goes back to what I just said. It has to do with the size of the population of the community. There's a set formula throughout the whole country. And if I lived in a community like that, I would probably be like, what's the deal? I don't get it. But there's a certain size that once they get to a certain size, it becomes an urban county. And what we do is every few years we reevaluate those. So like Clayton County is technically an urban county. Clayton County has like 15 cities or 20 cities within it, but Clayton County is the urban county. They receive direct funding because they're a certain size, and then they decide and work with those smaller cities to divvy up the funding. Eventually, maybe in 15, 20 years, when more people are moving out east, Rockdale County might get to that certain size and become an urban county, and they receive those funding. But we don't try to not provide funding for those counties, and that's where the state of Georgia comes in. The state of Georgia gets the most amount of money, and then they split it up to everywhere who's not an entitlement community.
Okay, I'm still looking through. Let's see. Has HUD discontinued choice neighborhood grant programs? I was familiar with those in the past. This is asked by Deborah.
Okay. Hey, Deborah. Not really. So it's kind of changed. The names kind of change a little bit. Those grants and a lot of those grants go to non-entitlement communities, maybe smaller cities or counties. That's run out of our congressional grants office. So and actually we had to take volunteers earlier this year to help manage those and get the grant agreements out, because there was so much money from Congress this year, and to provide funds for those communities, we had to take volunteers to go work on that stuff. I know, for instance, and I don't know locally here in the metro area, but I know like Pooler, Georgia, in Chatham County, and Chatham County received those grants like that. And there's a bunch in the state of Georgia, but some of those names are just a little different. And they come from the community, the Congressional Grants Office at HUD. And those are like special kind of one-off grants per year, but those are still around.
Okay. Jenny says, we are recipients of the Project Aware grant and need support sustaining our mental health efforts for 27,000 students. Is there a no-fold that best fits this need? I'm assuming this may be for SAMHSA. Brian, I'm not sure if you want to answer this one.
I'm so sorry. Could you repeat the question? I'm happy to answer it.
Sure. It says, we are recipients of the Project Aware grant and need support sustaining our mental health efforts for 27,000 students. Is there a no-fold that best fits this need? That was asked by Jenny.
Yes, and I think I sent a written answer as well, but I do want to clarify. It sounds like the questioner has active Project Aware grants. So to my knowledge, There are two types of active project aware grants, one with a 2-year cycle and one with a 5-year cycle. If you have existing project aware grants, they do plan to issue continuations in FY24. So that should be coming out in early calendar year 2025. But I don't think there's going to be any new awards the next cycle. I hope that is helpful. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them directly. You can get in touch with Candace or Eric, and you can get a question to me through the legislative affairs process.
Thank you. This question is for Jacqueline. This is asked by Doris. Is there any funding for Gateway community partners other than SNAP outreach? Our organization serves hundreds of limited English proficiency folks with no funding.
Hi, I had to look that up. I wasn't sure what the Community Gateway, but I believe that's a state of Georgia program. And so you might have to ask the state for that question. Yeah, I don't know if that's that's not helpful at all.
Thank you. This is asked by Patricia. We are a Rockdale County-based agency. It sounds like any HUD funding we might qualify for would come through partnerships or the state. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, it would. That is correct. But as I remember, I just want to reiterate, when we talk about continuum of cares, the state has their own continuum of care where they're providing, where you could apply and say, hey, I'm going to provide 15 housing units, and we're in Rockdale County, and we're hoping to serve, 20 families over the next year. And then however their process is, you go through them, and they can provide you. That's where I'm talking about this kind of like pass through. We're providing the grant to DCA. That grant agreement is between us and DCA, but then they're having an agreement with you and as an organization, and can provide funding to provide that service.
Okay. This question is for Brian. Is the DeKalb Tenant Landlord Assistance Coalition connected to your program?
I'm not aware of any landlord assistance programs within SAMHSA. It could be that question was intended for Jason.
Jason,
Yeah,
would you like to answer that?
Sure. We don't, as I mentioned before, I don't believe we're working with them at all.
And I'm going to
I'm double checking right now.
Sure. And one question.
Sorry. Okay. I get what you're saying now. I totally understand. They named it that. Okay. We have different names for the tenant landlord relief program. It looks like I'm trying to see for the county, they did have some funding. We utilized that program, what we call a COVID funds, CV funds. So we had CDBG CV, ESG CV, and HOPWA CV. And a lot of the communities who received those COVID funds, they utilized the same programs, utilized it for rental relief. And they provided it different ways. A lot of that funding's ended, or they're winding it down, but that funding would have been used for a program like that. Different communities called it different things, but the Tenant Landlord Assistance Coalition program, it looks like they utilized some of that funding for rent and utility assistance, and other communities did the same thing. City of Atlanta worked with United Way to provide those services, and they contracted that out with United Way because they were able to handle a ton of people at once. So every community kind of called it something different.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Marcus, our Chief of Staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Candace, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Scarza. I serve as the Congressman's Chief of Staff in our Washington, D.C. office. As we bring today's grants workshop to a close, I just want to take a moment to thank all of our governmental and nonprofit partners for joining us this week, especially those who are back again today. I also want to acknowledge and give a special thank you to today's presenters, Brian Payne of SAMHSA, Jacqueline Branscombe of ACF, and Jason Decker of Housing and Urban Development for taking the time to share potential grant opportunities within their agencies and departments. We hope this knowledge has given you a better sense of what types of federal funding are available to you and how and when to apply. Just a quick reminder that tomorrow's grants workshop will focus on a relatively new avenue for securing federal funding, the Congressional Appropriations and Community Project funding process, commonly referred to as congressionally directed spending or earmarks. This process has been a huge success since it was reintroduced in 2021, and it gives members of Congress and the communities they represent more of a say where federal tax dollars are spent. We will have Congressman Johnson's legislative director, Antoine Monach, he's our main point of contact for the federal appropriations process. He will be giving tomorrow's presentation on the do's and don'ts of the community project funding cycle, so you can be best prepared when the fiscal year 2026 cycle begins early next year. So thanks again to everybody. We hope